Oh, I thought it was just egotistical, but that doesn't start with a C, so I'm wrong.
Well,
Yeah.
it starts with a P, I think is the word that Rich said. So it
I
could
know.
be it could be pegotistical, but that sounds like something totally different.
A paranoid egotistical is like, we need to combine the two.
I think we've just created a new entry in the DSM.
Paragistical? Yeah, paragistical.
We've got like 5 openers.
Or
We'll have to use
egonoid.
these
Ooh, I
for
kind of
the
like
next
egonoid.
episodes.
I like
none
egonoid.
are actually usable. So,
And welcome to another episode of Even More Mashed Up, the podcast featuring 2 professors talking about all things pop culture. I am Patrick.
and I am Alan, and I hope that you're still listening after that opening. It got a little weird. I guess we're a little slap happy, maybe, Patrick?
Possibly.
Would you describe yourself as a slap happy person?
Generally, no.
No?
Oh, wait a minute, I see what you're doing. Oh, I get it now.
You'll
Slap
get there
happy.
eventually.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a second.
I told you I didn't have anything.
Yeah, I just assumed you would be classier than referencing the slap. I assumed that, that would be the kind of thing I would do.
I just don't
Well, we're
understand.
going to talk about the
You're-
slap at some point.
So
What else-
You're
what else-
going to the lowest common denominator, I guess. Just
What else
surprised
could
me.
you possibly... Well, yeah, because if there is a lowest common denominator person on the show, it's typically not me, but it seems
Yeah,
like you
exactly,
can't talk
exactly.
about the Oscars without talking about slapping this year. So,
And yet, I kind of wish we could.
yeah, although I feel like we're going to have to address it at some point today. But if you would prefer
Yeah.
to actually start with, like, I don't know, the movies and stuff,
Yeah, we could do that.
we could do that. We could pretend like the Oscars are about film, or we could just get to the
Oh,
personal drama.
Are you
Much like
suggesting
them, we
they
can
are not?
pretend it's a...
Well, it's again, the popular conversation does not seem much focused on actual films.
No,
which is
it is possible that there is something that is taken away from the discussion of film.
it is too bad. But I
Yes.
guess I shouldn't make a
Yes.
judgment, right? Are we allowed to make judgments about this? Given the Twitter conversation, I'm not sure what we're allowed to say or not say.
It's. Well, maybe this will be our ticket to the big time. Is maybe we'll say something controversial that'll get us onto the Twitterverse, and then we'll get our XM radio show, and the sky's the limit.
So, question: what do you think is the most controversial thing we've said thus far?
I don't think we've said anything controversial so far. In fact, we haven't even really made entirely clear what we're talking about today.
Oh, I think
No.
everybody knows.
Much like usual.
Yeah.
Rich, do you have a list of like the 10 most controversial things? I mean, Patrick says there's been nothing. I think
10 controversial of the...
That we've
that
said.
we've
Yes,
said
okay.
that we've said, like when Patrick said that
I do not.
Archie and Miss
No,
Grundy were
no,
okay.
no, don't bring that up again.
felt
I thought you were just
Yeah, I
talking
was like,
about.
controversial to me.
I thought
That's
you were just talking
immediately
about
what
this
I
episode.
jumped to when he
I thought
when,
you were
of
just
all the
talking
people
about
to
this
say,
episode.
Yeah, like of all the people to say there's something controversial,
Jesus.
I immediately
Exactly.
jumped to
Right.
Yes, I didn't realize you were talking about in the history of the podcast. I thought you meant just in this episode.
Oh, in like the
this
3
episode,
minutes
we have
we've
not
got
said-
going so far. No, we are clean.
Exactly.
This is a very
Yeah.
clean episode.
Well,
that, and every
well,
time you
we
say
were-
we've reached peak superhero.
Yep.
Yeah, we were until someone brought up Archie and Miss Grundy for the umpteenth millionth time, which is what people are going to find when I eventually become famous, and then I'm going to get canceled for it.
Yeah, but
All they're gonna know you for.
it just creates the arc for you. You've got to get canceled so you can come back even stronger.
I don't want to get canceled.
Well, but if you want your XM show, you're going to have to get canceled.
Or I could just,
No,
tweet
nobody
some
wants.
stuff randomly about, cures for COVID or something.
I guess you could.
Yeah.
I
But
guess
that's not what we're
we
talking
will,
about today.
No, we will use our celebrity differently. We're talking about the Oscars.
That's right.
Woohoo!
The annual celebration of all that is great in movie making.
A bunch of artists get together to celebrate the making of art.
Yes. So where would you like to start, Alan?
Well, I really wish we would have kept track of our predictions last time around. I assume, Rich, you didn't go back through and actually tabulate them?
No, because I thought I'd asked you guys, and you said you'd written them both down.
Oh, I did
mine.
not.
Yeah,
I
that's
definitely
why
do
I
not have
specifically
mine.
made sure.
Yeah, I went through my notes from the last when we talked about the nominations and just tagged thoughts onto it. So I do have all of my.
I did not make any notes.
Alan, could you potentially guess what your nominations were?
I'm going to guess that Patrick did better than me because I realized something. My picks were all like picks of the heart. They were things I loved, but Patrick, much more intelligently, thought about it from the political vantage point. And I think
I'm still
politics.
not sure.
I think you did better than me, though, right? You must have.
Well, I don't know how you did, so it's hard for me to say if I did better than you. I mean, I got some, but in some ways,
it's difficult to judge somebody when they don't have the answers.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well, how
really
many
should
did you
just
get,
take this
Patrick?
I should take this up. Oh, I don't know. I got. I mean, I did get best director,
And we wonder why the Oscars always are the worst episode.
and I did get best actor. I got best supporting actress, but that's the one everybody got.
I don't think I got that.
I got best animated.
Well, I got that one at least.
I think those were the only ones I got.
Well, I assume, because again, I don't actually know who won, but I assume Encanto won best animated.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I mean, didn't we kind of, based on what it was up against, it was one of the ones where like it couldn't possibly lose.
Well, I mean, I thought Raya and the Last Dragon might give it a run for its money, but yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, it was
again,
clearly the
if we're
heavy
talking
hitter in
between-
that category. But yeah, the other thing
And yet
too is the politics only served me so well because there were some things in this year's Oscars that don't really follow the logic that they normally do.
Yes, but I think it still did better than me picking just, my favorites.
Yes, well, we can only assume that since you have no idea who you actually picked. So,
Well, let's go through some of them, and maybe it'll jog my memory. I mean, I definitely missed
We just
Will
wanna
Smith.
go down a
There's
list
no
of-
doubt about that. Yeah, where do you want to start, Patrick?
well, we should start with Best Picture, I suppose.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Start with the big one.
Yep.
Maybe we can even go through the available options, and then you can say...
Oh, do we have to? That's a long list.
Well,
So the available
the other thing
options-
too
Oh, the Best
is-
Picture?
Yeah. Oh, there's 10 films. No,
Yeah,
good
so-
lord, it's a lot of films.
Rich, there was
okay. I thought these
Yeah,
all
there
won
was-
something. Never mind.
there were a lot,
Yeah, there's
and
10
I'm
films.
pretty confident that
So-
Licorice Pizza did not win.
No,
did
and
not.
I thought it was going to be King Richard or Power of the Dog, but it was neither of them.
No, Coda was a big surprise, right? Well, not a surprise, I guess, but can I
Well,
say
it depends
a
because
surprise
if you had
to
been
me?
watching, yeah, well, if you had been paying attention to how things like the SAG Awards and whatnot had been going, like in the last week to a week and a half before the Oscars or so, Coda was picking up there was a lot of buzz about Coda.
What I was meaning to say was...
And Power of the Dog had started to fade, so...
And I think even Coda's being re-released in theaters or something.
Oh, they always re-release the Oscar winners in theaters. That's...
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Coda,
that was
Coda was
I
Apple
didn't know it was
TV,
common.
so it was never in theaters, I don't think. It was Apple TV.
Okay, but I didn't know that was a common thing for the winners to get released again in theaters.
Oh, yeah, they do that all the time.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Coda, I think prior to the last couple weeks before the Oscars, I think a lot of people thought Power of the Dog was kind of the front runner, and then I don't know if it had anything to do with Campion's blunders at the SAG Awards or whatever it was, but Coda kind of was a dark horse that seemed to start getting some buzz going into the Oscars. So I wasn't completely surprised that it was Coda. Just because that was where a lot of people were talking leading up to the Oscars.
So any big upsets then, like why King Richard didn't win or anything? Like you said, you
Well,
weren't super surprised?
I think most people would consider Coda a bit of an upset. given a lot of the other films that it's up against. So I think that was a bit of a surprise in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
No, okay. I was like, we haven't heard from you for a while, so.
Well, you guys got going. It was hard to get a word in, so I just thought I'd let you roll.
Well, are you happy, Alan? Are you happy or sad then that Coda won? And what you said, Licorice Pizza. Obviously you wanted that one to win, Licorice Pizza.
Oh, look, I have a special place in my heart for Licorice Pizza. I didn't really expect it would win. I was saying it was a surprise only because I don't have Apple TV, which really kind of cut me out from the possibility of celebrating Coda, which is weird. I don't know that I can afford the Oscars anymore if I've got to stream all of these different, now high-end boutique services.
I think I saw Coda available to rent on Amazon Prime or something. There was something I saw that I could, because it was on one of the streaming services I have, because I wanted to watch it, but I didn't get around to it. But
it's still a good point.
So, that's
everything's stretched out.
Well, but that's the nature of pop culture now, period, is that, with all the various streaming services, like to see everything, you would have had to have had Netflix and Apple TV and Hulu and Disney Plus, as well as go to see a bunch of them that were only available in theaters, so.
Yeah, that's expensive.
It adds up quickly.
Indeed it is.
Alrighty, what is the next one we want to talk about? Do we just want to go to Best Actor and kind of get the other bit of controversy out of the way?
Why, was there controversy about Best Actor?
Well, it's who won.
Yes, Alan, would you like to share your thoughts on
sure.
Best Actor?
Oh, yeah, who do you think would win Best Actor?
Yeah, I don't remember who I said. I knew I said it wouldn't be Andrew Garfield. I think I thought it would be Denzel Washington, who, in retrospect...
for Macbeth.
It might have gone better had it been him. I remember Patrick on the preview show asserting that Oscar loves people who play other people. And so that was certainly one that came true. I really didn't think Being the Ricardos was going to clean up, so I was at least right in the negative there. But I underestimated the appeal of the nicest man in Hollywood, Will Smith.
Yes. I think you mean formerly nicest man in Hollywood.
Formerly known as the nicest man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not quite known as that.
The reputation may have taken a bit of a hit.
Yes. Well, because if there's one thing that Oscars does not stand for, it's violence of any kind.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. We do not have any tolerance for violence.
We do not celebrate in the media. We don't celebrate in the stuff we...
Yeah. Except when if it happens on their show.
Well, but then it's art, really, I don't know.
It's artists being artists.
It's all reality television anymore, is what it turns out. And I find it a little exhausting, honestly. What else is there to say?
Yeah, I'm sure they're happy because I'm sure this and next Academy Awards probably have higher ratings now because of it. So I doubt
the ratings for this year's, I think, were up. I think I saw something that said they were up 56% from last year.
Yeah, but Rich, they have to top it next year. This is only setting the bar that has to be cleared next year. Yeah. In terms of controversy.
That's why a couple of people thought it was staged, simply because they were like, did they do it just for the ratings?
Yeah, I think
but
if you watch
to do it for the ratings,
you
would need to actually advertise it. Just having a guy randomly come up and slug somebody towards the end of it is not going to help that much.
Well, yeah, but I guess the idea was that now we're talking, more people are talking about it now after the fact, and then maybe the hope is that next year you'll tune in to see what happened, so to speak.
Well, for ratings next year. Maybe, I guess.
Like sort of plan. Again, I agree. I don't think it's actually staged. I think, one, because of I feel like they would have done it less like emotionally had they staged it. You know, about like because like you know who it involved and stuff. Like again, I don't think you could have you paid Will Smith to come up there and like do that. You know, if it was faked, sort of.
No, that's a long play, like to stage this to get better ratings next year. But I guess like here we are talking about it. Speaking of which, Patrick, I brought a fair or foul for you because you watched the show, right?
I did, yes. I watched the first couple hours live and then went to bed and watched the last hour.
How long was it?
Wait,
it was over 3.5 hours.
Did you miss the slap then?
I saw it the next morning. Yeah.
All right. So then,
but you didn't see it "quote unquote" live.
So the fair or foul,
live.
The fair or foul might be hard for you to address then because it came from Variety, and their complaint goes as follows: that the quote. The 2022 Oscars were well and truly sunk in the confusion of Smith's slap heard around the world. The ceremony was already running long, but it needed even a brief moment to reset after the altercation threw everything into crisis. Instead, they ignored it and they barreled into the right thing, or into the next thing, ensuring poignant and historic moments practically went unnoticed. So I was going to ask you if that was true, if it just sort of then dwarfed everything that followed, but I guess you didn't watch. So,
I mean, you could still. I mean, it definitely still kind of dwarfed everything that followed. Because you had, immediately afterwards, you had, you know, Sean Combs came out and said, something about like, you know, we'll settle this, you know, elsewhere, or you know, something. Sort of tried to move on from it.
Yeah.
And then you had, what? I think it was, I can't remember which came first, but there was, one of the funnier Amy Schumer bits was, she had come out earlier as Spider-Man hanging from wires.
Okay.
And then you didn't see her again until after the incident. And so she came out and she's like, hey, yeah, so I was, it took me a while to get down from those wires and get out of the Spider-Man costume. Did I miss anything happening? Because there's a strange vibe in the room. It feels like something might have happened that I missed.
What did I miss?
So I thought that was funny. But then, I mean, I think it was within, I think like an hour after the incident, you had the giving out of the Best Actor award. And then you had Will Smith's very long acceptance speech / quasi apology. So yeah, I mean it very much hung over everything.
I would say number one, as apologies go, it was pretty it leaned more into the quasi.
Yeah, well, he apologized to the
Academy.
He apologized to the Academy and to the Williams family. He didn't apologize to Chris Rock at that point.
Right. At the same time, it was one of those apologies where he explained why what he did was, in a way, like understandable and like it. But anyway,
yeah, sort of justifying.
Right. Variety complained that like Questlove gave the really emotional speech for Summer of Soul, and then Jane Campion, of course, won her first Oscar for directing. And as Variety wrote, these kinds of things went practically unnoticed as a consequence of the slap.
I don't know about that. I mean, it was interesting. I did watch Questlove's acceptance speech. And it was hard for me to tell whether it was just him being overwhelmed at winning the Oscar in and of itself. Or that combined with, I think his was the first award given out after.
It was, I believe, yeah.
Because it's the one that Chris Rock gave out. It was Best Documentary. And so it was hard to tell because he was very, I guess, he was kind of all over the place in what he was saying and kind of kept apologizing and starting and stopping. And it was hard for me to tell if that was just a product of, like, his being overwhelmed by the win or that combined with sort of what had just happened.
And I guess that's kind of Variety's point, though, right? Is that you can never see Questlove's acceptance speech on its own. it's kind of always going to be bracketed by those kinds of questions. You know, how much of it was about the incident that immediately preceded it? And I just, you know, again, I feel tremendous sadness for the people that came after, kind of in the wake of it, that I think it could just, how could it not shape the experience?
Yeah. I mean, with Campion, I think Campion's was more shaped by the fact that they had Kevin Costner do the introduction to the Best Director award. And he went on this very long anecdote about him. See, I finally gave up and fast forwarded through it. He gave this very long introduction about, like, going to see movies as kid. Even Campion, when she got up there, she said something about to Kevin that, you know, well, that was dramatic. Like, Costner got up there and basically talked about himself for a good 5 minutes.
Look, if you're Kevin Costner,
even announcing the award.
It strikes me that he was, you know, if you're Kevin Costner, you're like, I got to milk every minute I've got in the spotlight at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at that point, the award ceremony was already way over the 3 hours that, you know, they supposedly didn't air the 8 awards during it that they were doing to save time and to get it under 3 hours. And it was more than 3.5. Like to be honest, the Oscar ceremony was a mess even prior to the incident between Smith and Rock. Like it was not a good ceremony.
Okay, I guess we should move on to something else.
Hello?
Then.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah. So, well, I mean, there's plenty to say about the ceremony as well.
Okay, we can move to the ceremony if you want to.
So,
yeah, well, I mean, it was a mess beforehand. Like,
well, there was a, you know, it just seemed like they did a lot of things that took away from what the Oscars were supposed to be about. I guess I don't know if I'm saying it right, but there were just a lot of, you know, like they still had some of the tributes, like they still had, you know, they had like a tribute to 60 years of James Bond, which is fine. I mean, I don't know that we need, I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure everyone's aware that James Bond exists.
Well, you could also just release that like before or after.
Yeah, but they had Tony Hawk and Shaun White, and I can't remember who the other guy was. You know, extreme sports guys come out and do the intro to James Bond, and it just felt really sort of pandering to me. I'm like, we're gonna have, you know, extreme sports guys come out because, you know, that'll get, you know, a demographic that we're trying to get. But makes no sense within the context of the Oscars. Like none of them have any relationship to film or anything, but they're trotted out on stage. There was a lot of stuff like that it was obvious that they were trying to court ratings in some kind of like ham-fisted, like, you know, the old guard at the Academy is like, oh, well, people like, you know, extreme sports, so let's get some of them and we'll get that audience. And it just kind of fell flat. There were things that they did that I felt were really insulting to some of, to some filmmakers. I mean, there's been a lot of people complaining about how, introducing the best animated feature, you know, the 3 presenters were all Disney princesses, and it was all about how animated films are just for kids and adults have to endure them. Which of course is kind of denigrating to, you know, the people that do animated films, and not even those that were nominated, but just people working in animation, period. And so there were a lot of things like that just hit a really kind of sour note for me.
Yeah, I can understand how that's just, you know, it's stuff that's like, okay, that's neat, but yeah, it has nothing to do with film, it has nothing to do with the awards, and it's like you said, just trotted out in the hopes of getting some kind of like ratings, which is weird because, like you said, it was like a 50% increase, and I doubt it was because they had people skateboarding, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what to attribute the 56% increase, except maybe more people saw movies this year than last year because COVID isn't quite as bad right now.
Well, like they saw them less in theaters, so maybe they're like, oh, we can celebrate, any excuse to sort of celebrate that there's more stuff in theaters now.
Yeah.
Like,
so, but yeah, there was just a lot of stuff. There was the performance of "We Don't Talk About Bruno" was weird, because they billed it as, "Ooh, it's the first live performance of We Don't Talk About Bruno," which isn't even one of the nominated songs. But then it also they kind of framed it as like a celebration of Latinos in film and Hollywood, or just in general. Like that was kind of, I think that's how John Leguizamo sort of set it up, and I think they did like a remix of the song that I think some of the lyrics spoke to that, but then, they did one verse and then Megan Thee Stallion came out and did a rap in the middle of it, which they didn't advertise at all. And so, people that wanted to see like a live performance of We Don't Talk About Bruno, they didn't get a live performance of the song from the film. People that might have liked to have seen the remix with Megan Thee Stallion didn't even know that was coming. And the idea of it as a celebration of Latinos sort of felt a little kind of tacked on. And again, wasn't something that they really built it as. So it just seemed like a really sort of contradictory effort on top of the fact that there's a good 5 minutes in a show that ended up running 45 minutes long, dedicated to a song that wasn't even a nominee. So it was just another weird moment.
So you might say that GoldDerby.com got it right then when they wrote that producer Will Packer intended to create a spectacle, but most of that effort was in vain. After a promising start, viewers were rewarded with one bad decision after another, resulting in a disappointing ceremony lifted only by the winners' speeches.
Yeah, see, I don't know that I want to put a lot of blame necessarily on Packer. I mean, the other thing too is this was the first Oscars done, put together by an African American producer, and so I don't necessarily want to kind of dogpile on that. And there were things that I liked that each hour they had a different musician sort of doing the music for the show. I liked that some people didn't like it, but I actually liked for the In Memoriam that they actually had a choir singing during it. And it was more of a kind of celebration than the more sort of somber In Memoriam that you usually have. So I liked some of the things that Packer did. I wouldn't necessarily agree that, it was mostly bad decisions. It was probably a bit of a mixed bag for me. There were some things that worked, there were some things that didn't. And I don't know, and the things that didn't work, I don't know how much of that I would necessarily lay to Packer.
Right. Should move on then, I guess?
I suppose.
Unless you've got more on the show.
No, I'm sure. Well, I mean, we might get to other stuff, but I've pontificated enough about the show, probably.
I guess it's not too surprising that the 94th one of them would still be kind of bad. Well, still not something you really have to catch.
Yeah, it was just. I don't know. There were ways that it just felt kind of at odds with itself.
Well, again, it's kind of like you said. It felt like maybe at times they were just trying stuff just for the heck of it. See, like, oh, maybe they'll like this, or maybe people like that, but we don't really have a cohesive theme.
Yeah.
So I guess we could get back to the awards, right? We've only done...
Yeah, do you want to do best...
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to do Best Actress?
We've not done Best Actress yet.
Yeah. I was not right on that. I just, I had some good reasoning, but I just applied it to the wrong person.
No, your corollary applies here, but there were too many of them to to apply it to. You know, I still love Kristen Stewart's performance. I stand by my vote for her, but Jessica Chastain's never won one before. It was
that surprised
like
me. I thought she had.
Surprising realization for me. So that was
I thought she had won for something before, but maybe it was a SAG or something else.
You would have thought that she would have had one. So, you know, clearly not only is the movie and the performance brilliant, but she's got a body of work in the career that certainly has built towards her earning it. Plus, you know, who doesn't love Tammy Faye?
I don't recall being a big Tammy Faye fan.
No, I don't think anybody was a big Tammy Faye fan.
No, I don't know. I think there's a certain segment of the population that were big Tammy Faye fans.
I'm not even sure Jim Baker was a big Tammy Faye fan.
Well, that's true.
But that's probably a little too inside 80s right there.
Yeah, that's pretty inside. Well, I mean, if you saw Eyes of Tammy Faye, maybe you get that reference.
That's true. Or if you lived in the 80s, there's a chance you might get it too.
Yeah.
The era of the televangelists.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I assume Kristen Stewart will get hers in a couple of years.
I mean, depending on you know where she goes from here in her career, if she keeps making kind of Oscar caliber films.
I feel like that's her trajectory at this point.
Yeah. Oh, there is a category that I think you might be really interested to talk about, Alan.
What's that?
So there were 2 fan votes at the Oscars this year.
I have those in my notes, actually, to talk about.
Yeah, the most cheered moment and the fan favorite.
Which they're clearly never bringing back, right?
I don't know. They seem to me like they were just a rousing success.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot imagine that Oscar, anybody in the organization, in the aftermath of the show said, it was a really good idea. We should have the fans vote.
I think so, too. I mean, the fans clearly got it right.
Yeah, if we live in Trump's America, they got it right. Absolutely. It was just like the hardest core trolling you could possibly do of the Oscars.
What was a more cheer moment than the instant in the Justice League Snyder Cut when Flash enters the Speed Force, which everybody watched at home? Like, who didn't jump off of their couch, spill their Cheetos on the floor, screaming with joy at that moment?
Well, I mean, were people excited that Dreamgirls made the top 5? It just,
well, I mean, to give them credit. Well,
yeah.
No, because apparently for that award, Oscar gave them a list of moments.
Yeah.
Like they had like 20 they could choose from. Because I was trying to figure out, how did Matrix get on there? When that movie is from 1999. I didn't realize until afterwards that they had given them like a list of like 20. So
yeah,
that explains why Dreamgirls and Matrix were on there. But yeah, it was I think it does demonstrate the power of the Snyder Bros.
Of all that's wrong with Trump's America and the internet, when you combine them, that's what you get.
Well, hey, in defense of the Snyder Bros, or I'm not really sure who this is defending, I'm pretty sure this would be the result with or without Trump.
Well,
that's
Snyder probably
Bros
true, but
he's such
an online kind of trolling bully kind of personality that I think it kind of encapsulates kind of him being the end product of all the joy and improvement the internet's brought to our lives. I think you could write a history of it. You could trace it directly, like from the first email to 2016. But that's just my theory. Yeah, I don't think Oscar's going to bring him back. It was obviously stupid.
I would guess not, because it was again, it's another one of those things that I'm like, yeah, that's a really stupid idea.
Yep.
Cater to an audience that Oscar clearly does not really care about catering to. This is the whole like, oh, we need to do something, I guess, to acknowledge films like Spider-Man No Way Home. So, we'll do this thing that just ends up completely backfiring on them. So, and you know, generally, and again, it's just very emblematic of disdain for a kind of film that Oscar seems to have.
It just, no matter how you slice it, it just is ugly and not good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. There was a lot of ugly in this year's Oscars.
Yeah.
You know, even absent the Rock Smith incident, there was still a lot of ugly.
Yeah.
In this year's, and a lot that I'm still completely baffled by. Best Director.
Well, we haven't done Best Director yet, have we? So why don't we talk about that?
No, we've not.
What baffles you?
Well, I mean, usually there's a kind of logic to the Oscars in that you can kind of see like who's got the momentum and things like that. But, you know, Campion wins for Best Director, and she, you know, the film's good. I enjoyed Power of the Dog. Mm-hmm. But the film literally lost out in every other category it was nominated for.
It's a weird year.
Meanwhile, you've got Villeneuve, who's not nominated as director for Dune, wins, I think, almost every single technical category award, in which everyone who won it gives him credit, and yet he's not nominated for Best Director. Like, it just baffles me how that happens. Like, you know, I don't... I mean, my best guess is, you know, Oscar voters might have felt like I did, which, you know, Dune does not make any pretense of being a film in and of itself. Like, it's literally 2.5 hours of a story that is 5 hours long, and it just stops. Like, there's not even a pretense that this is a complete film.
Yeah, a lot have written about that.
And so I'm wondering if that's, you know, but it's just bizarre that a film that wins in almost every, if not every technical category, and even original score, but doesn't get Best Director, and then a film that doesn't win anything but Best Director gets Best Director. It's just it's weird. It just seems weird to me.
I guess so. The Dune
Maybe
stuff
the
is
film
also
was nominated
technical,
for too
though.
many.
I just feel like, you know, those often get separated in a ceremony like this. Like Oscar thinks of like the technical ones are often the ones where you give it to Suicide Squad or whatever.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that
like
was,
the
yeah,
kinds
like,
of it didn't
think,
win. Like Dune didn't win Best Actor. It didn't win Best Screenplay.
No, original
you know,
score is the only. Yeah, original score
Right.
is the quote unquote highest award it won.
So for me, that kind of makes sense. You know, that it was seen as technical accomplishment, but was not seen maybe as achieving the same level that. For God's sake, Spielberg was nominated. So, like, who are we to talk about?
And again, that's
I guess.
Or even Branagh for Belfast, which is a perfectly fine movie, but I would say doesn't rise above the level of being perfectly fine.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing that Oscar loves, of course.
Well, and that's which is why I think it won screenplay.
You know,
and also it gives Branagh an Oscar.
Yeah, this is the first time the directing award has gone to a woman in back-to-back years.
Yes. Which is significant and something
crazy.
that normally we probably wouldn't be overlooking.
There's a couple things like that are really quite remarkable. I don't know if we're going to talk about cinematography or not, but I was stunned. Dune won Best Cinematography.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I read somewhere that Ari Wenger was nominated for The Power of the Dog. Mm-hmm. That is the sole Oscar category that has never been won by a woman in the history of the Academy Awards. Never. Can you imagine working in an industry for where 9 decades of movie making, there has never been a single woman who did the best cinematography? Like that, it's mind-boggling, right? It's just mind-boggling.
Did he say anything about like how often women have been nominated? I'm curious that's...
I did not see that.
I mean, I'm assuming it's probably as colossally low a number as well, but...
I'm sure that it is a colossally low number. But again, reflective of the same problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to slip that in. I found that to be interesting and somewhat horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's. I mean, yeah, that there is even a category. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm curious if a woman has ever been nominated for cinematography.
You know what I was reading
would-
did not. Yeah, I can Google
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was wanting. Yeah, that's what I was wanting. Like, yeah, has a woman ever been nominated for that category? So yeah, no, there's but yeah, so Campion's win, and certainly Campion is an accomplished director. People got kind of down on Power of the Dog for reasons I'm not really sure. I really liked Power of the Dog. Like I'm still, it's a movie that I'm still kind of thinking about, and that I think does really interesting things regarding masculinity, particularly masculinity as a system or structure.
No, it is. Just real quickly, only 2 women have ever been nominated for cinematography.
Yeah, I just Googled that
Okay.
as well.
All right, so
I mean, I agree with you. The Power of the Dog is wrestling with some really heavy questions, and not in ways that you necessarily expect. And I can kind of understand maybe why Sam Neill and Men's Men would be kind of offended by the.
Do you mean Sam Elliott?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Offended by the how the cowboy is portrayed here. I just thought, it just, and the fact that it's set in 1925, and there's so many ways in which it's like a Western that kind of subverts everything that you kind of. I think it's brilliantly done in that way.
Power of the Dog is, like I said, it's still one that I'm thinking about and may even think about writing about at some point. Because it does some really interesting things. So
for sure, but not good enough for the best Oscar, which went elsewhere. So are there other awards?
Coda is a rare film that actually won in every category it was nominated.
Well, there you go. So that says something about it.
Yeah, though it is, I find its win for adapted screenplay interesting. Mm-hmm. Because it's adapted from it's a remake of a foreign film. Which I find very, like, I don't really pay that much attention, but I never got the sense that best adapted screenplay included other films. Like, it always seemed to me like it was a film that was adapted from something in some other medium. So like a book or a play. I
think most people would assume that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I find it, and one of the things that, and again, this is one of the other things that I find troubling, is that it was an international film. And we have that, there's now that core category that's, best international film that used to be called best foreign film. Mm-hmm. That there's a weird way in which Oscars sort of treats foreign/international film as a different genre from American film. Like, that these are two different things. Like, it's almost implicit in Coda being adapted from a foreign film into American film, that it almost seems to treat foreign or international film as something wholly different from film as the Academy views it.
Right, because you wouldn't give Mark Wahlberg's Planet of the Apes, a best adaptation nomination.
Well, technically,
for several reasons, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But
and that's one of the things that would, because I don't really, for me, taking a film and making another film out of it doesn't really feel like adaptation. Now, I don't know if the original film is still about children of deaf adults. Maybe that's something that they added for Coda. I don't know, but it's just, it's another thing that it's just a thing that it feels like Oscar is kind of taking a shot at, or is kind of denigrating to international film, that, it's got its own separate category, like animated film. That it almost, there's just something about it that seemed weird. And so when it was, because I knew it was up for a screenplay award, but I assumed it was original. And then when I watched and saw Belfast win for original, I'm like, wait, Coda's adapted. What's it's adapted from? And they mentioned that's from another film, and I'm like, I found that weird as calling that adaptation.
It's almost surprising, you would say, that
So,
an award ceremony created by and hosted by Americans assumes a kind of American exceptionalism
yeah.
that places everything else in subsidiary categories in the hierarchy.
Yeah,
Surprise.
well, I think that's one of the things that's one of the things that bugged me about this award is, and I don't know why it was this ceremony, but there were a lot of things about this ceremony that revealed some fairly ugly attitudes on the part of the Academy towards animation, towards international film, things like that. That I was just like, yeah, I don't know. It kind of I guess it sort of exposed the Emperor for wearing no clothes.
Yeah, if they hadn't been exposed before, certainly you would think they had been now. Yeah.
Yeah. Though at least there are some positive things to talk about in the supporting actor and actress category.
That is indeed true. Do you prefer to start with one or the other?
No, I do have a fun fact about supporting actor.
Okay.
Yay.
So, Troy Kotsur, the guy that won it for Coda, is apparently also the guy that developed the sign language that the Tusken Raiders use in The Mandalorian.
Huh.
Wow, that is a fact.
Yep, it's a fun fact.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't watch The Mandalorian now.
Nah, well, you watched the first season.
Oh, I guess I did, didn't I?
Yeah, and I think there was more of it in season 2, but I think we saw some of it in season 1. But yeah, I guess he must have been one. I guess he must. I don't know if he was a consultant. He might have actually played one of the Tuskens in the show. But yeah, I saw someone posted on Twitter or something the other day that said, Oscar winner Troy Kotsur for Coda developed the sign language system for the Tusken Raiders. So, and I thought both his acceptance speech and I thought Ariana DeBose's acceptance speeches were two of the better speeches of the night.
Well, I thought DeBose in many ways stole the show. It was just a really powerful speech.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic speech. I mean, and I mean, her award was probably the biggest given of the night. Like she was the front runner for supporting actress from the get go. So,
right.
I thought her, particularly the end of her speech where she talked about a place for people of difference like herself. I thought that was a really powerful.
It was. It was. And again, what we might be talking about out of these Oscars, because both supporting awards were really historic and important, and about social justice and inclusion and all the stuff that art ought to be promoting.
And as you pointed out, Best Director being only the second time, the first time that a woman has won it 2 years in a row, like that kind of falls under that category as well.
Yeah, all these things we could have been talking about that could have really showcased Hollywood for the better.
Yeah.
It's not quite what we got.
No, not really.
I'm sure you did some research on like the other worst moments in the Oscars.
I have not done research. I have seen various people posting other worst moments to Twitter.
Well, I've got 5 for you that come from the marysue.com.
Oh, okay.
And just, maybe you want to try to rank them, although probably they're impossible to rank. So at the top of the list,
say that they're all terrible.
Yeah, at the top of the list has to be John Wayne being restrained by security guards.
Yeah, that's the one that keeps coming up the most.
Yeah. So you've seen also Clint Eastwood's speech later. He comes up to give an award later.
You mean during that same award ceremony you're talking about?
Yeah.
I saw something referencing that, but I don't remember it.
He said, and I quote, "I don't know if I should present this award on behalf of all the cowboys shot in all the John Ford Westerns over the years," with like this smirk on his face.
Pretty sure none of them were actually shot.
Well,
that's what movies are.
Again,
we don't want you to kill people.
I think men who play cowboys, it turns out, often have difficulty which is the beauty of the power of
What?
the dog. They have a hard time separating themselves from the cowboy and the masculinity that the cowboy embodies for them. And so when somebody like Little Feather gets up there, apparently when she went backstage, she said people were making stereotypical Native American war cries and doing like the tomahawk chop at her.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So number 2, of course, Hattie McDaniel is the first African American to win an acting award.
Yeah.
She, of
having to
course,
be
was not
sort of
allowed to
off
sit with the rest of her
by herself.
cast.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 3.
Yeah, that's another one that I've seen. I'm assuming Roman Polanski is somewhere on the list.
The standing ovation in 2003 is a bad one for a man accused of drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. You know, that probably not your best look. McFarlane and his performance of "We Saw Your Boobs" was also discussed,
McFarlane.
in which he did Seth. He did like the song and dance
Seth
number.
MacFarlane.
Yeah,
Oh,
where he
that's
named
right,
a
I
bunch
forgot
of
about that.
actresses
Yeah.
who had done nude scenes in their films. You know, which is
Yes.
always funny.
Yes.
You know, that kind of misogyny. And then the final one on the list, of course, is Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, I'd say those are I hadn't seen Seth MacFarlane, but the other 4 I've seen people bringing up, particularly in response to, you know, the Academy Award statement. You know, we don't condone violence of any kind. It's like, well, you kind of do condone some violence.
Well, they have for a long time. There's a great quote from somebody who like follows awards and talking about Harvey, and she said, "Everyone knew if you were in a Harvey movie, chances were you were going to win or be nominated for an Oscar. It's a sick thing to be in a business where that was the collateral used to coerce women." And yet, you know, he continues to hold all of his Oscars, and so in many ways, for all of
18 of them, I think he's got. Yeah,
all of the noise about the slap, I think there's actually a lot probably Hollywood could still be working on and apologizing for.
Well, and particularly in terms when you think about, you know, particularly the John Wayne incident and the Hattie McDaniel incident, like those are things that happened at the Oscars, just like the Smith Rock incident.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all of these happened at the Oscars. Yeah, so
Yeah.
not really the night to celebrate that it might have been, I suppose.
Are the Oscars good? Like, I know it's a sort of a silly question to ask, but is it even a thing that's necessary at this point as a
show or as
I mean, maybe the show. I understand the awards being, you know, recognizing films and the effort put into it, but like, is the show itself necessary? Is 3.5 hours of, you know, this whole thing that happened last time like good for the film industry or for the world?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's I mean, clearly, I don't know. The Oscars clearly want to be like this mainstream event. That it feels more and more like they are not.
Yeah, and it just feels like one of those things where, like, I'd hate to say, like, don't have the Oscars and don't have awards for films, because I know there's a lot of people that matters a great deal to, you know, for a lot of reasons. But, like, it seems the longer it goes on, it seems almost like, I don't know, the more harm it does.
And so much of it is political, and so much of it is, you know, designed in the way that Patrick made his picks last time. It makes you wonder, even, Rich, about the artistic merit of the awards they're giving.
Yeah.
You know, and so I understand that Hollywood wants to reach out, and this is a way to try to connect. They're clearly, for people who make entertainment for a living, quite tone deaf about how to actually do that. You would think they would understand people a little bit better than they seem to understand people.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that the Oscars or the Academy or what have you, like, they've diverged in terms of the kinds of films that they are, you know, willing to nominate. You know, like, I mean, when I was a kid, you know, in the 70s and 80s, like, you would have a film like Star Wars or Indiana Jones or something like that would be nominated for Best Picture. And you know, I think Alec Guinness, I think, was nominated for supporting actor. Like these are films that would have been, and more those kind of films are only nominated in certain categories, or, you know, are just nominated, you know, out of a desire to placate fans. I mean, you know, you look at Best Picture and Dune is probably, you know, that's the one blockbuster. And I don't think anyone had any kind of sense that, there's no sense that Dune was ever going to win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Well, you got to get nominated to win.
Yeah. So, but even with the nomination, I don't think anyone realistically thought, well, Dune's not going to win Best Picture. And so, yeah, like it, you know, it's I don't know. I think there's ways in which that Oscars have become very kind of insular, and it's hard for them to be a kind of mainstream event when they're not really catering to kind of mainstream tastes.
Well, that's kind of the impossible problem they have to solve is cinema is such a broad and capacious kind of art form that it can run from, you know, the high art to the very low brow. And I think people who make that stuff obviously prefer to focus on The Power of the Dog instead of like Police Academy 3 when they're when they're talking about what they do really well. And I think, you know, I agree, Patrick, they're really struggling to kind of acknowledge that popular films can be well-made films. It's almost like the, you know, my assumption that if it's popular, it has to be somewhat crass. It has to be somewhat less than is not always true. It's sometimes true. But yeah, every once in a while, a blockbuster that people love should show up. Like Titanic did all right, right? So it's not like it's that far removed. I mean, I don't think of Titanic as really high art. No. But it was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's the other thing too, is that I think there's more of a sense of, at least for me, it feels more like when the Oscars are acknowledging those films, you know, they're doing it out of a sense of obligation and not as something they really want to do.
Right. I think that's fair. You know, don't you think most of them who run the Academy see themselves as artists? And, you know, for them, it's important to recognize the high art as a way of validating their own self-perception. And it does, like, disconnect. And there's nothing wrong with saying The Power of the Dog deserves a lot of conversation and a lot of attention because it's doing something that's pretty high art and asking, like, the really hard questions that cinema can do. But cinema can also entertain, like Police Academy 3, which, by the way, is not the best of the Police Academies, I'm assuming. I've just picked one randomly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I saw Police Academy 2.
Wait, you didn't see one, but you went to see 2?
No, well, here's why.
I missed the first one. I might as well get a second.
That's a very strange choice.
No, Police Academy 1 was rated R. Police Academy 2 was PG-13. And so Police Academy 2 was much more geared towards a wider audience.
Wow. See, now when I saw Police Academy 1, as a pretty young kid, I guess, I would have thought it was geared towards a pretty wide audience. Because I remember that day, like, nobody cared about R. You just met a stranger at the mall. You know, like Rich, you'd buy him popcorn and he'd walk you into the movie as your guardian.
I'm sorry. Did you just casually talk about meeting strangers at a mall and letting them buy you a movie and candy as if that's a normal thing?
No, I'm just saying that's what people did in the 80s. It's Rich. Rich is a good guy. He just wants popcorn. But you didn't go with like a friend's older sibling so that you could get into Police Academy. Did you feel cheated as a kid? Were you like, man, it's not fair that I missed. So you were like, no, that movie is too mature for me. I need to wait for 2. Were they make it a little less
I
mature?
Well, no, I had no desire to see it. Period. I mean, I think the first R-rated movie I saw was When Harry Met Sally.
That was an R-rated movie? Holy cow.
I think it might have been, yeah, because I remember my dad had to buy the tickets.
Huh. So you had no desire to see Police Academy 1, but you went to see 2.
Yeah.
So you did have a desire to see it.
I don't know if I went to see 2. I might have seen 2 when it was like on HBO or something.
Yep, rated R.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that what was rated R back in the 1980s
Things have changed.
is very different. Like, we were watching, the last Thanksgiving that I was down at my sister Julie's, we rented Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And I remember my brother-in-law was like, how is this film rated R? And then you get to the one scene where Steve Martin basically drops the F-bomb, I don't know how many times in a 5-minute monologue. You're like, oh, that's why, because that was what got you an R rating in 1984 or whenever that film came out.
Right, because the F word was going to corrupt all of these kids beyond saving. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Americans are weird about what kids can and cannot see.
Yeah. So.
Very weird.
So, but yeah. Any other thoughts about the Oscars? I do have a fair or foul.
Okay. I know we're running a little long. I was going to ask you a little bit about the hosts, who seem to have gotten fairly decent reviews as hosts go.
Yeah, they were. They were fine. There were some there were some funny bits. There were also some I thought a little bit kind of mean-spirited jokes. But yeah, I thought Schumer and Sykes and Hall, I thought they were all perfectly fine. They were not on there a lot. Like, they did their opening bit together, and then I think early on they each had one kind of individual bit, and then it felt like they were gone for the next 2 hours. They were not a constant presence. And maybe that was just an effect of having 3 of them as opposed to Billy Crystal, who would be showing up in all of those spots. But the hosts were fine. I thought
the line
the
that
funniest,
3 women were cheaper than 1 man, I thought was a funny and revealing jab, though.
Yeah, I thought the bit they did about the last duel, I thought that was kind of mean. I did like their joke to Dame Judi Dench. Because they were giving out gifts to members of the audience, and so the gift they gave to her was an inspirational saying, which was "just get to work" from Kim Kardashian.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I like that. One of the funniest bits, though, was they had Woody Harrelson and Rosie Perez and Wesley Snipes come out. I think it's the 30th anniversary of White Men Can't Jump, and I can't remember which award they gave out. But Woody Harrelson, I think at one point stumbled in his speech, and then he paused. He's like, well, I've said more words tonight giving out this award than in the 3 times I've been nominated.
It's pretty good.
Which I thought that was, he said it funnier than that. It was a funny little bit. But yeah, I thought the hosts were fine.
Yeah. It did lead to the best tweet I saw post-Oscars was in the aftermath of the slap. Somebody tweeted something to the effect of, oh, we could have just slapped Ricky Gervais and been done with it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people talking about, I've seen other things saying, how did Ricky Gervais not get slapped? Which, again, I think part of it speaks to, I think part of that speaks to changes in what we're willing to tolerate and what kind of humor is acceptable.
That's a pretty quick change, Gervais is not that long ago.
Yeah, but I think I don't disagree. Or sorry, I don't agree with Will Smith going up on stage and slapping Chris Rock, but I also think the comment that Chris Rock made about Jada Pinkett Smith, I thought that was completely offensive.
I think that sometimes you look at a situation and you're like, everybody's wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact,
yeah, they're both
the entire
wrong.
conversation in the aftermath of it has treated Jada Pinkett Smith as like a secondary object in this conversation, right? She's the one that the story is about, but we're only talking about the two dudes. And I think that is incredibly revealing too. And it's why everybody ought to watch The Power of the Dog, and everybody ought to interrogate masculinity, and everybody ought to think about the way in which our culture teaches men to be men. Yeah,
there was something online that appeared pretty quickly about the incident as evocative of toxic masculinity on both Rock and Smith's side. And I was like, yeah, that's...
I don't know how you deny that, you know? It's just
so
tragic and revealing.
Yeah, so... But yeah, there's a lot, particularly like in the last 24 hours, that seems to be attempting to paint Chris Rock as more of a victim in this. And I'm like, you know, I mean, he is a victim of the slap, but, you know, he's as guilty of perpetrating a kind of violence as Will Smith is.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Again, like sometimes you look at a situation, and as much as, you know, Zack Snyder has taught us to find a good guy and a bad guy everywhere, sometimes it's just not how it plays out.
Yeah. Which I did have this one fair or foul, because Variety did an interview with Daniel Radcliffe. And asked him... And asked him for his thoughts on the incident.
Mm-hmm.
And his response was, quote, "I'm just so already dramatically bored of hearing people's opinions about it that I just don't want to be another opinion adding to it."
You know, again, I saw a great tweet today marveling at how the Harry Potter series kind of gave us all of these kid actors who have grown up to be really impressive people, and yet
I saw that tweet as well.
And yet the adult who wrote it has gone, you know, just bonkers.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But like, we live in a society where if we don't talk about it, we're part of the problem. But it's hard to talk about it in a way that is constructive and authentic for where we sit in relation to the actual incident that happened on stage. So, you know, I think that's totally fair. But I think if we don't talk about it at all, that's also problematic.
Right. Well, but as you also pointed out, a lot of the ways that we're talking about it are a way too simplified, you know, who was right, who was wrong, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy.
Right.
That we're trying to boil it down to a very simple sort of binary, you know, good, bad, right, wrong.
Right.
When really the incident is tapping into a lot of things that are much more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's questions about like what it means to be a man in America, and the way, again, I mean, you know, toxic masculinity is an overused phrase probably, but the way in which it leads to all kinds of violence perpetrated in all kinds of ways that we look past. So
now, and also thinking about like what constitutes violence, because that, you know, that in response to like the, you know, 5 Oscar moments, you know, that are, you know, Oscar is, you know, the Academy's all up in arms about what Will Smith did, and yet, as we've seen, they have a very long history of, you know, perpetrating and or supporting other violence.
Which doesn't mean they should excuse Smith or that they should excuse Rock, but it should be, if we're going to have an accounting, this is just the historian in me, if we're going to have an accounting of the violence we have done to people, we have to start with the incident today, but we can't address the incident today if we don't look back in our history and come to grips with the way in which we have historically looked away when violence was perpetrated.
Well, and looked away when the violence was perpetrated by white men.
Yeah, you can't have reparations.
You can't really separate race out from that either.
No, you can't separate race. You can't separate gender. You can't separate class. You know, like they're all wrapped up in this, and like that's hard for a person to do. It's hard for a group of people to do. But to have that kind of healing, to have something better emerge from our struggles, we have to be willing to address the history that got us here.
Yeah, which is probably why we're not going to emerge as something
100%.
better.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% clear. But maybe Rich is right. Like, it'll bump another 50% next year, and the Oscars will be back on track. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
they'll turn themselves around.
That's what's important. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we know films only care about money.
Well, I think that's what Rich was pushing us to earlier, right? Is it in some ways this is just a money grab, and so no publicity is bad publicity.
That feels like such a cynical point to end on, and what has been just a very positive and affirming conversation today.
Yeah, why don't we end with DuBose instead then?
Yeah, that's better.
Who I think, where she concluded, like when you look at me and you see this openly queer woman of color and Afro-Latina who found her strength in life through art, that's what we're here to celebrate. Like that is worth celebrating. And so she said, as you noted earlier, so if anyone has ever questioned your identity or you find yourself living in the gray spaces, I promise you this, there is indeed a place for us. That's really powerful. That's a place to kind of think about what Hollywood might be doing instead of what it did.